The phase one of the Penstock construction starts just below Washington Park area at the SRP generating station. At that point it goes south through some native area and then through Rim Trail subdivision. Follows along Forest Service Road 32 and then connects into Control Road, heads east on Control Road for approximately a quarter mile, and then we head up over what they call Bear Canyon to cut through the Whispering Pines area, and then back down to Houston Mesa Road. Follows the road basically down to Third Crossing and then crosses the old alignment of Third Crossing. And then just south of Third Crossing is the end of phase one, just north of Second Crossing.
In late October of 2015, work began on the Penstock Phase 1 up in the National Forest. The decision was made to begin trenching first on Forest Road 32 near the Control Road 64. By November 2nd, the trenching had gone about a mile north on Forest Service 32 towards Washington Park. There was some snow on the ground up there by November 5th, but this did not cause any significant delay in the work as they had begun putting pipe in the ground. The geology we encountered when digging the trench for the pipeline surprised us all, I think. The Phase 1 pipeline is 5.5 miles long and required only 1,000 feet of blasting. The Tapete sandstone rock encountered there was extremely hard and couldn't be excavated like the rest of the trench by either rock trencher or large excavators. It was always anticipated that some blasting would be necessary, so it did not have a big impact on the schedule.
The contractor did his best to go ahead and pothole certain areas, try to figure out where the rock was, but the rock was hit and miss all the way through the project. There was more than 50% of the project was rock.
The other rocks, different types, were softer than Tapete sandstone but would not dig with a conventional excavator. So they tried rock grinder wheel on them, actually a trench excavator with carbide tips on it. And that was about the one way to avoid the blasting and the potential noise disruption to the spotted owl, is to just grind that rock out. Some days they'd make 50 feet, some days they'd make 300 feet.
Where he thought he was going to use the saw in just a small area, he ended up using the saw quite a bit to cut through the rock. And that saw sometimes was going through 20 to 30 teeth in 1 hour that they'd have to replace, and those bits were $20 a piece. So it's quite an expensive undertaking to use that saw. Once the water from SRP hits the generating station, they use up all the energy, all the pressure that was in that pipe with the hydro generator. So there's basically zero gravity in that pipe. So we had to gravity feed without pumps. We didn't want to utilize a pump because that would be more expense running a pump, and it would cost electricity to run those pumps. So we chose to go with gravity feed. And in order to do that, we had to get through a high elevation area. And we've got about 22, 23 feet of cut in that area to maintain constant slope. Once we get past the Rim Trail area, then we're gravity feed all the way down, and don't have to use any pumps for the rest of the project, or any of the project. With work going well and the construction on FS 32 being completed, attention was turned to Bear Canyon, where the pipeline took an important shortcut. The 3/4 mile pipeline through the forest, and that detour is known as Bear Canyon, was necessary to avoid trying to construct a pipeline on a very narrow section of East Houston Mesa Road going through the Whispering Pines subdivision. There's such a narrow corridor going through there with private property on both sides. There's some barricades there holding up a slope, and we felt that by going through that area, number one, we'd close that road down continuously for days on end going through there to get the construction through, if we could even get through that narrow corridor. So we started looking at an alternate path and found that Bear Canyon was a good solution. We talked to the Forest Service and got their approvals and went through the whole process of the environmental clearances to get through that area.
We were pretty sure that that Bear Canyon area was going to have a lot of rock. Just from hiking up through there, doing the initial layouts, we saw a lot of exposed rock ledges. So we felt that through that area and through the Whispering Pines area, there would be a lot of rock excavation.
At the tail race near the SRP power station by Washington Park, the pipeline was nearing completion. On March 7, 2016, the final connection to the line that had been completed in the winter of 2012 was made. In just a few days, the trench was backfilled and a helicopter pad was installed close to the power station. There was still work to be done, and this work would be taking place in a very environmentally sensitive area. Payson's special use permit from the Forest Service had very strict requirements on how we cross the East Verde River.
The permitting process only allowed for a 14-day period to make the crossing on the East Verde River. So within that, the contractor was responsible for first diverting the channel to one side, diverting the river to one side so that he can construct on the other side. After he made his diversion, he had to excavate through a lot of rock, a large trench large enough for a sleeve that the water line was actually going to go into afterwards, and that sleeve is actually encased with concrete. Once he got one side done, he had to re-divert it and then do the same thing again on the other side. And then after that was done, then he had to restore the area back to its native habitat, basically, with rocks and debris, just like it would have had with a natural river crossing. All that had to be done within a 14-day period, and the contractor was actually successful in completing that in a 10-day period.
Now the road between the Bear Canyon bypass and Third Crossing needed to be finished, and that was done in May and June. And a section of road after Third Crossing to the end of Phase 1 pipeline was completed.